and it will feel quite cold. Temperatures struggling to get into the double figures here. Breezy across the rest of England and Wales, but sunny spells developing and temperatures around 17 Celsius. For Thursday, the remnants of that low pressure start pulling away and it becomes a brighter day for most with sunny spells, scattered showers. Some of the showers can be heavy at times, but some places will avoid these and stay dry all day, and temperatures around the mid-teens. It stays unsettled as we head towards the Easter weekend. Further rain at times, temperatures generally around average.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long queues on the western stretch of the M25. The left lane of 4 is closed clockwise between the M4 and the M40. A van's broken down, causing queues back into Surrey towards the Staines bypass. West Sussex, just south of Findon, the A24 remains closed, where a car overturned just off the A280. And in Dorset, the A3049, this is the Wallasdown Road, is closed eastbound to the northwest of Bournemouth off the Wallasdown roundabout. There's been a serious accident and investigation work continues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News traffic and travel report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A very, very good evening to you. Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dordley. Astonishing scenes in the Channel earlier on this afternoon as more than 700 illegal migrants crossed in small boats in just one day. And that smashed the previous record set just 2 days ago. And this marks the busiest day of the year so far, with border force, or is it border farce, stretched to breaking point, and critics accusing the government of once again losing control. I'll be joined by Home and Security Editor Mark White, the man who gave us this scoop, to give us the latest on this developing story. And in a fresh Brexit backstab, the government is reportedly considering letting European Union judges have a say over which meat and dairy products can be imported into the UK, and the timing could not be any worse because the Vice President of the US, JD Vance, has been talking up a potential UK-US trade deal, but could European Union interference throw a spanner into the works? Plus, shocking revelations tonight as it's revealed that dangerous criminals have been walking the streets for months, including murderers, without electronic ankle tags after being released from prison. Killers, stalkers and burglars completely unmonitored and free to walk amongst us. Now, the public was promised strict tagging. Instead, we got a system in chaos, and victims are left wondering if they are truly safe. All that to come on an action-packed show, but first is your news with Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are your headlines. The White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has said the US currently have 15 trade deals that are being actively considered. Earlier, US Vice President J.D. Vance said there's a good chance of a trade deal with the UK amid global economic jitters triggered by sweeping US tariffs. Stock markets have been reeling since Donald Trump announced 10% tariffs on nearly all imports, including from close allies like the UK and France. But signs of recovery emerged this week as the White House insists the tariffs are a long-term play to cut trade deficits. UK government sources say talks with the US are progressing well, with a potential deal expected to go beyond just tariffs. Vance told Unheard the UK is a stronger prospect than Germany, thanks to a more reciprocal relationship. Back in the UK, the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, has said any Chinese bid for British steel would be looked at in a different way after the government was forced to seize control of Xingji. It comes as 2 emergency shipments of raw materials have arrived in the UK to stop British Steel's blast furnaces from going cold. Iron ore and coking coal from the US are being unloaded in Immingham and rushed to the Scunthorpe plant, enough to keep it running for weeks. Ministers say the company had planned to shut the furnaces and sell off vital stock. Steelworkers have called the delivery a huge relief and a turning point for the site's future. But the Industry Minister, Sarah Jones, said this morning that the government was not ruling out another Chinese owner for British Steel. Now, today is a new record for the number of illegal migrant crossings in a single day this year, smashing a record that was only a few days old. GB News figures show around 700 migrants arrived in UK waters today, surpassing the previous one-day record of 656 migrant arrivals. The latest crossings take the number of small boat migrants who've made the journey this year to nearly 9,000. 4 Russian journalists accused of working with the late opposition leader Alexei Navalny have been sentenced to 5.5 years in prison each. Antonina Favorskaya, Sergei Karlin, Konstantin Gabov and Artem Krieger are accused of belonging to an extremist group. However, the trial has been held behind closed doors in a court in Moscow since October. All 4 deny the charges. And the Birmingham bin strike is set to continue after workers overwhelmingly rejected the council's latest pay offer. Unite says the deal fails to address potential pay cuts of up to £8,000 and could impact hundreds of workers. Military planners have now been called in, with 11,000 tonnes of rubbish already cleared from the streets. But public health fears are growing, with dead animals found in parks and some residents reporting rat infestations. The council says its offer was fair and its doors remain open. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, illegal immigrants' channel crossings have once again hit a record high this year, with GB News provisional figures showing that a shocking 700 migrants arrived in the UK waters today alone. Now, this comes just days after the previous one-day record. That was on Saturday, of 656 illegal immigrants who arrived, all whilst Labour's so-called leader stands by parroting slogans. Well, so much for smashing the gangs. The only thing getting smashed at the moment is the public's trust and those daily records. Now, they promised to turn the tide. So why do the boats just keep rolling in. Well, Labour said they would plug the leaks, but it seems they've brought a sieve to a flood. Well, joining me now is GB News' home and security editor, Mark White. Mark, this story broke earlier on my show, 700 plus, and I believe you said there still might be another craft in the middle of the channel. They promised to smash the gangs. Mark, the gangs simply aren't listening. This is a PR disaster for the Labour Party.
Well, there's no doubt it's very bad news in terms of the policy of smashing the gangs, because it shows that, thus far at least, this policy is not having an effect on the numbers crossing. In fact, they are at record levels. And as you say, yes, we're at 700 plus now for the day. 669 who'd actually made it to Dover Harbour when we spoke earlier, but we knew there was another boat that was just about to hit the line into UK waters. Well, we can now report that that boat made it to UK waters. It was met and the occupants were picked up by the Border Force vessel Defender, and as we speak it's just arrived into Dover Harbour, and our producer Chris is down there, is still working on an accurate count. We were told 70 migrants initially were on board. Sometimes what happens, especially if it's quite dangerously overcrowded, some of those migrants want to come off and they're taken off by French authorities, so it might not quite be 70, we don't know exactly, but it's certainly going to take us over 700 as we've been reporting here. So that vessel now in Dover Harbour, along with so many that were in the harbour today. I don't know if we've got actually some of the exclusive images that we can show you of those vessels that came into Dover Harbour throughout the day. Multiple vessels that came into Dover, not just Border Force vessels, but also the RNLI, the Dover lifeboat, was called in on multiple occasions to help in recent days. Today, it was called out twice to help Border Force because all of their vessels were tied up. We don't clearly have those pictures.
And Mark White, there are also some images you showed earlier on, astonishing images of immigrants on the side of these dinghies paddling their feet in the water. These images on the screen here, Mark White, will be an insult to every single British taxpayer. They are simply rubbing it in now. They're taking the mickey.
Yeah, so this is part of the sort of marketing campaign, if you like, by the criminal gangs. They are so sophisticated now and are well versed in the art of tempting other migrants to make the journey from whichever country to eventually cross the English Channel. And what they'll often do is give them a discount on the price of coming across the English Channel if they make TikTok videos like this one, and especially when they get to the other side, if they then also take videos of the plush surrounds of some four-star hotel that they're in. That's all used as marketing to ensure people that if they embark on that journey, they're very likely to make it and they'll be put up in nice accommodation at the other side.
And Mark White, last week you broke the exclusive story. By the way, you're on a roll. Well done. Excellent work as ever. About British Border Force vessels returning life jackets to the French. And all of this starts to look like, it's an old cliche, some people perhaps may say it's unfair, but this starts to look less like a rescue service and more like a taxi service.
Well, it's an excellent point. And today, again, the last vessel that has just come into Dover Harbour with that boatload that had originally set off from near Boulogne-sur-Mer a little earlier this afternoon, we're told that the occupants on board that particular migrant boat were not wearing life jackets. And at one point, the French vessel Mink, its rigid inflatable, was alongside this migrant boat. Now, that might have been to take some migrants off, but more likely it would have been handing out life jackets to those migrants. And while the French would argue that they're only doing the responsible thing, given the dangers out at sea, there is a fine line, and many would argue, and I think quite powerfully, that they have crossed that line from just keeping people safe to enabling these crossings, because the people smugglers who are so good at the marketing, as we just described it, can turn round to those that might be, reticent to embark on what could be a perilous journey, and then say to them, look, you're fine. You get out into the water. Not only will the French leave you alone, they'll escort you across the busy shipping lanes. And to boot, if you don't have a life jacket, well, they'll provide you with a life jacket as well.
And Mark White, we just had those exclusive pictures there on screen that you got for us from our correspondent down there of the vessels once again rolling into Dover. It's starting to look like a kind of pound-a-go booze cruise. It looks like a holiday.
Well, I mean, all these people, I think the important thing to get across to people when there are those that see our coverage and they come back at us with, look, what are you saying? This is what, 9,000 or so that have crossed so far this year. That's nothing in comparison to a year which can see up to 1 million net migrants coming into the country. But the big difference is the 36,000 or 40,000 or whatever it might be at the end of this year are people who have not come as net migrants, who've not come legally to this country to work or to study. These are people who have tried to circumvent our borders to break into this country illegally and then use the asylum system to try to stay here, whether they've got legitimate claims or not. They've come via an illegal, or as this government calls it, an irregular route into the UK. And it's the most visible manifestation of this illegal trade in human beings across the English Channel. So it's understandable that we would be reporting on it, and reporting on very significant days like this, when, as we say, it's worth reiterating, a record daily arrival for this year so far, 700 plus, Martin, at a time of year when we just don't see those kind of numbers crossing the English Channel normally.
And Mark White, another sensational, if grim, exclusive, and I suspect it won't be the last. I really suspect this record will be broken. Mark White, the best in the business, GB News' home and security editor, thank you very, very much. Now let's get that now to my panel. I'm joined by Sir Ranald J. Wardener, the former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, the journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown. Panel, welcome to the show. Joe, I'm going to start with you. It's a terrible look. It's a terrible, terrible look. Rishi Sunak promised to stop the boats. He could stop the boats no more than King Canute could stop the tide. And clearly, Sir Keir Starmer cannot smash the gangs.
No, there are several things I would say. One is that Mark made the very important point that the people on those boats are human beings. The other point that everybody seems to have forgotten, that since we left the European Union, we lost the ability to return people.
You're blaming Brexit for this?
I am. Actually, because there were no small...
You're not seriously blaming Brexit?
There were no small boat crossings before 2017. And actually, Boris Johnson, when he came out of Europe...
But we haven't left the EU, and we didn't leave the EU till 2020.
But we didn't have small boat crossings until that, and we can't return them. We also don't have access to an awful lot of European databases, which would allow us to look at people who had been refused.
You're saying the EU database would stop this mob coming
No, I'm
over.
not saying it would stop it. But what I'm saying is that, we haven't had the ability, and successive governments, and I'm not saying that this one has got any answers either. We can see that demonstrably. But Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, remember her? All of them have failed miserably to renegotiate. And what we've done is we've poured millions of pounds into French policing. I think the point that Mark made, which I think is really interesting, and I think we covered it last week, actually, is this marketing campaign that the people smugglers are using. And it's almost as though what we need to do is to counter that with "this is the reality." It's quite calm at the moment.
A social media campaign will stop it. European Union data will stop it. Come on.
European Union would help it would make it much quicker to return people who had already been refused asylum in other countries. We don't have access to that anymore.
Rano, you've been waiting patiently. Over to you. It's your fault, the Tories and Brexit.
No. First of all, on the idea of returns and the fact that this suddenly miraculously appeared after Brexit, well, no. I mean, what we remember are illegal migrants trying to get onto the back of lorries, trying to get into cars, get into vans. We've seen, in fact, some people going into a roof box recently. So, you know, there have always been different routes. This is just the latest one. And it's really critical, whether we're in or outside the EU, to tackle it. It's very different, as Mark said, from legal migration, which is a different discussion. So it's important to separate those two. I will agree with Joe. You know, ultimately, anyone, every single person is a human being, has value, and we shouldn't, you know, wish ill on anyone.
Yeah, but their lives clearly aren't in danger. They're in Calais.
Well, this is exactly the point. You anticipate me, Martin. You know, this is not to negate the value of each individual person. It's to really be firm and say that France is a safe country. Italy is a safe country. Greece is a safe country. There is no excuse for people to make that journey across the English Channel and come here. And, you know, what I will say is that, you know, the Rwanda scheme, yes, we didn't get to see it put into action because the election came before the first flights and Labour chose to cancel it.
Two people voluntarily left?
Well, but as I said a minute ago, you know, we didn't get a chance to see it in action because the true implementation was to happen after what ended up being the election date. But Labour made a very big mistake, because if they thought it wasn't going to work, if Labour thought Rwanda was not going to work, they should have let it happen and proven it. What they've done is removed a tool from their toolbox to deter people. This is Joe's point about social media. There was a tool in their toolbox to deter people from making that journey in the first place on the basis they weren't going to be able to be here. If it wasn't going to work, they could have blamed us legitimately, and if it did work, the tool would have been useful to them. Unfortunately, they have made a mistake, and we're living with the consequences.
Yeah, it's the fault of Brexit, it was the fault of the Conservatives, and the son of a toolmaker, yet still might get a tool out of a box. We live in hope. Joe and Rano, thank you very, very much, and a lovely start to the show. Thank you very much. Well, could there be any hope of a trade deal? Could it be under threat as the government seeks deeper economic links with the European Union? Can you believe it? Brexit is back. Should the government prioritise trade with the US or the EU? We'll be debating that in the studio with two Brexit heavyweights, the former Liberal Democrat leader Sir Vince Cable and the former Conservative Minister and champion of Brexit, Sir John Redwood. Ding, ding. Brexit next. Don't go anywhere. If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Do you think that this Meghan Markle lifestyle range is really going to fly off the shelves? Do people want her very expensive Luke?
OK, so I'm going to caveat my answer with the fact that I do think Meghan has really, really good style. I don't think anybody is debating that. She always looks incredible. She wears amazing clothes. She knows how to put herself together. Will that translate into sales? Well, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. And by the way, I think you have an amazing future in TV sales beckoning for you.
It's frankly probably my only future, actually, Amber. I think it's probably my only future. But carry on.
I mean, the question is, they're very, very expensive clothes, aren't they? I mean, I had a little trawl through as well, you know, just in case I wanted to buy something. I think the cheapest thing I could find was a pair of £120 J. Crew white linen trousers. It's not just the fact that this stuff is really expensive, but who is dressing head to toe in white every day? The clothes that she's chosen as well are just not the clothes that mere mortals wear. I mean, look, there she's in the kitchen, she's cooking up a storm. Who's wearing all white?
Who is this actually aimed at? It's not mums in a rush, is it? It's not some poor single mum in Basingstoke who's got 2 screaming kids, and you know that all of us. You know, look at the stuff that she's churning out there. And by the way, what is not her home and with no children in sight. I mean, who is this clothing range for?
I have absolutely no idea. It's not me. It's not anyone I know. It's fascinating that I mean, if you're going to launch any brand, the first thing you do is ask who's my customer, who's my audience. They clearly haven't got a clue. Nobody needs to know how to make their own tea bags. Nobody.
No, and also stop sprinkling flowers on stuff. Stop it. No one does that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dordman. Now, the Labour government is under fire once again over reported plans to align with the European Union rules on meat and dairy. And they're even open to accepting the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, despite the fact we Brexited. Now, it's all part of Keir Starmer's bid to reset relations with Brussels ahead of a major UK-EU summit next month. But critics say this could torpedo a potential free trade deal with America, just as US Vice President J.D. Vance says that there is a good chance of striking a great agreement with Britain. So are we throwing away a golden opportunity with our most powerful ally, the United States, or to cosy up back to the bosom of Brussels? And should Britain focus on rekindling EU trade or securing a game-changing deal with the United States? Well, joining me now in the studio to debate this is the former Lib Dem leader, Sir Vince Cable, and the former Tory minister, Sir John Redwood. 2 Brexit heavyweights. This is like going back in time. I absolutely love it. Sir Vince, I'm going to start with you. Let's be honest, we voted to Brexit. We almost did Brexit. And yet now, this is once again rowing back towards Brussels. Why on earth do we need to go back to any sense of being a rule taker and not a rule maker?
I very much welcome it. I think Mr Starmer's been far too timid in restoring trade relationships, particularly in the food sector, which have been disrupted by checks. I mean, we've had some immediate impacts. For example, on horticulture. Here we're talking about fruit and dairy. And of course, you know, you have to have a degree of regulatory convergence in the jug. And if you're going to have trade in products of this kind where there are standards issue, and you have to have a dispute settlement mechanism through, in this case, the European Court to resolve any dispute. I have no problem with it. I'm just worried that the government's been far too timid on the whole European issue. I mean, they even balked at a very limited agreement on temporary short-term migration for young people. That's pathetic.
People listening in were probably no doubt unsurprised by the fact the bollards to Brexit party would rather things be happening quicker.
Bollocks rather than bollards.
Oops, apologies for that word. I kind of deserved that. I tempted it out at you. On a serious point, we voted to leave. This is rowing back. Many people say this is the road to rejoin, and more to the point, is it not once again, Sir Vince Cable, a case of politicians think they know better than the voters?
No, the Brexit agreement was a long time ago. It's left a lot of flaws. I think there's a general acceptance. A large section of the public feel that many aspects of it are mistaken. I don't think anybody now is talking about rejoining the European
Union. You just want to sell out, as you did last time, and look at the huge damage they did to our farms and agriculture over all the years we were in the EU.
European Union.
Shorter milk quota, banned our beef.
There is a very strong argument for rebuilding the relationship with the single market. Countries like Norway, they're not members of the European Union.
We haven't lost our relationship with the single market.
Sir
We've
John,
got a tariff-free agreement.
Yes,
we gave up an awful lot to get that tariff-free agreement. Don't put any more agony on us. We want the Brexit freedoms. We had this precious prize of a free trade agreement with the United States of America, which the EU would never do because they put too many barriers in the way around their customs union. And now you want to stop it. Now, we could get a much better deal on farm produce for both sides of this agreement. And what is wrong with letting people choose for themselves by having proper labelling on the food? And why are we imposing these very heavy tariffs on all food that comes from non-EU but not on EU?
So I'm all for liberalising trade, and the main obstacles at the moment, there are many obstacles in the European Union, we should be trying to remove them. And as for the American agreement, we don't know what's in it.
Well, there's not enough in it, according to the briefing.
We don't know. And
quite happy to have a digital agreement, but there needs to be a food agreement as well.
It could be highly problematic. I mean, I was involved with your colleague Ken Clarke in the discussions we had on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was an attempt to get a big trade deal across the Atlantic. And there were all kinds of problems, including sovereignty issues. I mean,
yeah, but we did the TPP when we left the EU.
Dispute settlement procedure, which are just as onerous as those in the European Union.
OK, but have you seen how our exports of services have actually soared massively with non-EU once we left? Our trade is up, not down. You and your friends said we were going to lose trade. The trade is well up. And as in the EU, it's growing faster with non-EU than EU. It was always like that.
There's been a massive reduction in exports, as you know, and there's been a significant impact on the British economy.
No, there hasn't been a big reduction in
Budget
exports.
Responsibility, which a Conservative Chancellor established, has established that, you know, we're losing something of the order of 4% of British productivity.
No, we're not.
levels.
That was a bogus forecast, which is completely untrue, and you should retract it. You know it's untrue.
I don't retract it. I support the mechanism which both parties in the coalition established, and it's a highly authoritative economic body.
Yeah, but the voters...
It was a forecast that was wrong.
And the voters rejected it. The point is, when the people spoke, and you might not like that clearly, but the people did speak, and there's been a total betrayal, a denial of that by the political class ever since. It took the Brexit Party getting involved for the Conservatives, with all due respect, to actually get Brexit at least done, or some might argue it wasn't. But what about the timing of this, Sir Vince Cable? Donald Trump is calling the EU a mafia, no friend of the US, and we're on the brink of a trade deal with America, which could be a game changer. Why go back to Brussels?
You don't know what could be in that trade agreement. The United States government has just imposed significant tariffs on Britain.
Less than on the EU.
Less than the EU.
That was a Brexit bonus?
That's nothing to do with Brexit. We have the same status as Russia, the Taliban in Afghanistan.
The EU. The Americans
Gabon,
like Brexit.
Honduras.
Get over it. They want it. They think it was a very good thing to do. Why are we
sharing the same tariff as countries that have been ostracised by the rest of the
world?
world?
We weren't sharing the same tariff as the European Union. It was double. You have to concede the trade tariff with America was a Brexit bonus.
It was absolutely nothing of the kind. It was an arbitrary product of a ridiculous mathematical formula cooked up by some crank in the White House.
You don't accept that the UK having half the tariff agreement of the EU was a Brexit bonus. What was it?
Absolutely not.
Well, it must be a Brexit bonus because we'd be paying the EU one if we're still in the EU. Can't you see that? It's simple logic.
What would have happened had we remained in the European Union? And
well, we'd have faced the EU tariff. That's what would have happened. It was twice the one we got.
The simple fact is we're dealing with a completely wild, unpredictable, extremely damaging trade policy in the United States. We have absolutely no indication of what they're going to offer us. Our trade with the United States overall is welcome, services particularly. It's about half in total value of that of the European Union. If we're seriously interested in boosting our trade, which we should be, we've got to restore good links, close integration with the European Union and with the United States, both.
But we haven't lost trade with the European Union. We just gained a lot more with the rest of the world. We should be celebrating that.
We've lost a great deal of trade with the European Union. You know that.
I thought, John, that the imports and exports to the European Union, both in and out, were up since Brexit.
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
Well, the question is...
But they are going to slow down because the government's closing down most of the things that we used to sell. They're going to stop us selling petrol cars and oil and gas and oil products. So it will go down, but that's to do with the government policy and your love of net zero to deindustrialise us.
Well, I'd be very much in favour of net zero. I happen to chair
so you want to deindustrialise us?
Commercial UK company that's taking full advantage of the net zero objectives, and many other entrepreneurs are doing the same. So it's a completely irrelevant issue to this one.
Well, it's not, because tying into the European Union tied us into their net zero targets as part of the withdrawal agreement. That's the point. We were locked into that.
Negotiation. It was negotiated, I think, by a Conservative government, actually, but it was a cross-party agreement within the UK. It's British legislation.
Gentlemen, we have to leave it there. I suppose we'll never agree on this. Sir Vince Cable, Sir John Redwood, excellent debate. Back to the days of Brexit. Admit it. You both miss it, don't you? Thank you very much. Now then, before we go to the break, we're going to... You want to hear this, because Patrick Christys has in store for you later this evening includes a never-before-heard recording of the convicted terrorist Anjem Choudhury on the state of radicalisation in prisons. Patrick's here to tell us more. Great exclusive, Pat. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, thank you for squeezing me in, Martin. Much appreciated. Look, huge exclusive. I have got never-before-heard audio recordings of Britain's most notorious jihadi, Anjem Choudhury. Today, it was revealed that he is suspected of influencing the Manchester Arena bomb maker Hashim Abedi before he allegedly attacked prison officers behind bars in HMP Franklin. These audio recordings show that these jihadis have been mocking Britain behind bars for decades. Here is the first clip. It's Anjem Choudhury talking about how, frankly, these de-radicalisation programmes are complete rubbish.
Views that we hold, and I can speak for all of them, are based on very, very clear, defined scripture. And no amount of talking to by a so-called theologian or police officers or judges is going to change those views.
But I've got a short snippet for you now as well of Anjem Choudhury actually talking about what life is like in that prison, HMP Franklin. And again, it just exposes, for me anyway, Martin, exactly why these jihadis need to be kept in solitary confinement for the rest of their natural lives. This is how they interact, or rather don't, with the prison officers behind bars.
Can collectively completely ignore the prison infrastructure and the officers there.
There is a huge amount of very revealing information, never-before-heard audio recordings of Britain's most notorious jihadi coming your way on my show, 9 to 11 p.m. tonight, Martin.
Sensational exclusive. Great stuff, Patrick. And well done, by the way, on your forthcoming child with Emily Carver. Amazing news. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Pat. 9 to 11, Patrick Christys tonight. Now, thank you to Sir Vince Cable and Sir John Redwood. Next up, US Vice President J.D. Vance said there's a good chance of securing a great trade deal with Britain. We'll be delving into what that means with J.D. Vance's British Sherpa after the break. That's next.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the FTSE 100 today surged after US Vice President J.D. Vance said there's a good chance of securing a great trade deal with the United Kingdom. Now, J.D. Vance highlighted Donald Trump's deep affection for the UK, our shared cultural ties, our alliance and even the royal family. Now, the British government has long been pushing for an exemption from President Trump's tariffs, and in an interview yesterday, VP Vance said he was optimistic that both sides could reach a mutually beneficial agreement. Now, with the Chancellor Rachel Reeves heading to Washington later this month, could we now finally be on the brink of sealing a crucial deal for Britain? Well, let's take a listen to what the Trade and Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds had to say about the prospect of a trade agreement with the US earlier on today.
We are working very hard. We've made clear, I think the public know, we've been engaged with the US very much to try and find a way through. The relationship between ourselves and the US, the trading relationship, is an incredibly balanced and fair one. I believe we could enhance the terms of trade we have with each other, not just remove the tariffs, ideally, which would be obviously the objective of the British government. So I can't give a running commentary on the progress, but I can promise we are doing everything we can to remain engaged on the issues, trying to find a way through that gets the best deal for the UK.
Well, joining me now is the man who J.D. Vance himself branded his British Sherpa, and that's Professor James Orr, the Associate Professor of Philosophy of Religion at the University of Cambridge. Professor Orr, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. Do you live in hope that these words will make good and that we will get a great deal with the USA?
I confess, Martin, I'm a little bit sceptical when I hear British government offering up those kinds of views. I mean, because I just don't think it's true that they're making the best efforts they can to forge a free trade agreement with the United States when at the very same time they're pursuing a so-called Brexit reset with the European Union, including on food standards and customs deals. We're going to see increasingly large swathes of various sectors coming under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. Remember that, in Luxembourg. I don't think that's something that the Americans are going to take kindly to. And I just don't think that it's something that these are parallel negotiations that the UK can conduct. It's simply that it is a zero-sum game. We left the European Union precisely in order to, one reason was to be able to engage in bilateral trade negotiations with some of our biggest export markets. And I think the other issue which came up last week over the case of that poor woman who was arrested for simply holding a sign outside an abortion clinic was that the State Department made very clear that there will be no free trade without free speech. And I think that is an encouraging line for the Americans to be taking. I wish it weren't the case that a foreign country is reminding us of our founding values and values indeed that which we exported around the world, including to the United States itself. But I think it's a good news story, and you won't pick that up if you have. I had a quick glance at the BBC News website before I came on. I noticed that the front page story is poor Chinese firms suffering from Trump tariffs, and right at the bottom, the comment piece on why, despite all appearances, a UK-US trade agreement might not be such a bad thing. Might be such a bad thing, I should say. So I do think it's a good thing. I think partly it's signalling from Vance that no, it is not true that he doesn't like Brits, that he doesn't value British soldiers' contributions to the various geopolitical conflicts that the United States has been engaged in for the last 30 years. It's not the case that Vance is against all of these. What he's critical of is an out-of-touch, technocratic leadership, which he thinks is not being sufficiently responsive to the will of the people and the will of their electorates.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very, very much for shining a light on that for us. Superb. But that's Professor James Orr, the Associate Professor of Philosophy of Religion at the University of Cambridge, and JD Vance's British Sherpa. Excellent stuff. Now let's get back into my panel. Of course, Sir Ranald J. Wardener, the former Conservative MP and Minister, and Joe Phillips, the journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown. Joe, I'm going to start with you again. We just had a ding-dong about Brexit.
I know, we
a
did.
minute ago.
And some swear words
We
as
did,
well.
yeah. Sorry, before the watershed, that was my fault. I did coax it out. But I think Professor Orr made a good point there, a great point. Why, oh why, in the name of sweet baby Jesus, at this time, is Sir Keir Starmer choosing to align with the European Union when JD Vance, Donald Trump made it abundantly clear they think the EU is a racket? You can't have your cake and eat it.
You can walk a tightrope for a while, and I think Keir Starmer has been trying to do that. Personally, I wouldn't trust JD Vance as far as I could spit, any more than I would trust his boss, because they are so capricious, and we've seen how they change and they blow in the wind and they back down and then they do something else. And our future does not lie with being tied to one or the other. And I think this is about America trying to force a wedge and trying to make a choice, or make Britain make a choice. It's either go with us, America, or go with the EU. And frankly, I think there'd be an awful lot of people in this country, including many small businesses, who would say, actually, we'd be better off with the EU, because you can't tell what Trump is going to do from one minute to the next. And as for this, there'll be no free trade without free speech. This from a government that is removing funding for universities, and they're taking...
Because they're ramming socialism and wokery and anti-Semitism down the throats of students.
That's their opinion.
Well, it's the truth.
Well, that's your opinion.
Well, you don't think that that American campuses have a terrible problem with anti-Jew racism?
Well, I think Harvard have shown that some cojones, to paraphrase Vince Cable, and actually they're standing up to it, whereas Columbia is caved in. But we've seen what they're doing to the press, we've seen what they're doing to legal firms, and we've seen what they're doing with books, for instance.
Okay.
Well, just, you know, the Naval College Library in America, they've removed Maya Angelou, but they keep Mein Kampf.
Well, you know, Mein Kampf is an historic document of the world's most evil tyrant. Perhaps that's not the issue. Let's move on, Ranald. Why, at this moment, this moment in history, we have an opportunity to do a trade deal with America? The clear message has been sent out that 10% on the UK, 20% on the EU. We have a fork in the road. So Keir Starmer seems wedded to Brussels.
Well, yeah. So look, first of all, I don't accept that it's either or. You know, we've got a zero quota, zero tariff deal. That's what it technically it's called with the EU already. So we can continue that and have very good trading relationship with the EU, which we currently have today, and improve our trading relationship with the EU, with the US rather, because we've never had a trade deal with them at all. And so the opportunity to do both is absolutely on the table. And this isn't about Trump. This isn't about Vance. This is about the United States and the United Kingdom having a trade deal that stands the test of time. We, the Conservatives, I remember when I was at the Department for International Trade, we got halfway through a trade deal. It's on the shelf, and Johnny Reynolds has rightly been getting that out and reheating it and seeing what can be done now. So, you know, I commend Labour on that, which is to go after it. What they've really got to do, though, is not get sucked in to an orbit in the EU that prevents it. So you can absolutely uphold your food safety standards in the UK. We don't have to have chlorine-washed chicken for the sake of argument. Let's debate that. We don't have to have that, and we can still do a trade deal with the US. But what we really should not do is be dragged into permanent alignment on any standard with the EU.
But that's happening.
That could happen. That is rumoured to be happening. That could happen. And if that does happen, that makes it much harder to do a trade deal, not only with the US, but with other markets around the world. And it's not just the EUS that we should be looking at. We should be looking at the fast-growing economies of Asia. That's why CPTPP, which was started under the Conservatives and has now been acceded to, ratified under Labour, that's a really good thing, because that's some fast-growing economies. Right. India is another opportunity as well. So much to do. And this deal is absolutely on the table. Trump government does want to do it, and just take cars. We could sell so many of our luxury brands to the US. That'd be a great export. That'd be creating lots of jobs in the UK. And yes, we could buy some cars back from the US, including German manufactured cars like BMWs.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ranil and Joe. We have to move on. Now, for the break, a shocking investigation has revealed that criminals in England and Wales are going unmonitored for months after their release from prison due to chaos within the tagging system, including one murderer who went 2 months without an ankle tag after claiming his legs were too swollen to wear it. You couldn't make it up. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're hoping to get away for the rest of the Easter holidays, I'm afraid it's rather unsettled across the central Mediterranean. Heavy showers, thunderstorms and also some strong winds. Largely dry across Madeira and the rest of the Canary Islands, though, particularly after all the heavy rain recently. But as we shift our way eastwards, heavy showers affecting much of the central Mediterranean. These could have hail and also some thunder and some strong winds associated with them too. Largely dry across Greece, and it's turning largely dry for all as we head into Saturday, with temperatures widely in the mid to high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure really dominating, an unsettled outlook. Outbreaks of heavy rain over the next few days, some strong winds at times too. And those strong winds developing as we go through this evening and overnight as this area of low pressure moves in from the south, bringing some heavy rain to western parts in particular as well. Parts of Wales, the West Country, have a yellow warning from the Met Office out through the night into Wednesday morning. The heavy rain then transferring into parts of Northern Ireland during the early hours. Elsewhere, generally quite cloudy with outbreaks of rain. Temperatures overnight generally holding up around 6 or 7 degrees due to the cloud. The winds picking up too, gales developing through the Irish Sea along southern coasts, and these strong winds spreading inland as we go through the day. Let's look at the details for Wednesday morning, and actually across northern Scotland it's a bright start for some of us, some sunny spells here, but the rest of Scotland cloudy, some patchy rain, heavy rain across Northern Ireland. There could be some localised flooding issues first thing here. The rest of England generally cloudy, and that heavy rain extending into western parts of England and Wales as well. Just some brighter skies starting to come into southern counties first thing Wednesday morning, and this sunshine slowly spreads a little further north through the day as the area of low pressure just tends to very slowly push its way northwards. So some parts of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland will have a wet day, some strong winds too, and it will feel quite cold. Temperatures struggling to get into the double figures here. Breezy across the rest of England and Wales, but sunny spells developing and temperatures around 17 Celsius. For Thursday, the remnants of that low pressure start pulling away and it becomes a brighter day for most with sunny spells, scattered showers. Some of the showers can be heavy at times, but some places will avoid these and stay dry all day, and temperatures around the mid-teens. It stays unsettled as we head towards the Easter weekend. Further rain at times, temperatures generally around average.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dordman. Now, a damning investigation has exposed shocking failures in Britain's prison tagging service, with dangerous criminals roaming free, sometimes for months, without even wearing their electronic tags. Now, One convicted murderer was on the loose, completely untracked for 2 entire months. And a stalker was left waiting 5 months for his ankle tag, long enough to re-offend. Now, the scheme brought in last summer to ease prison overcrowding is now under huge fire. Furious domestic abuse charities say the government is putting inmates ahead of victims and public safety once again. And officials had claimed that every prisoner was tagged within 53 days, but one burglar was left without a tag for a staggering 78 days. So I'm rejoined by my panel, Sir Ranald J. Wardener, the former Conservative MP and the Minister, and Joe Phillips, the journalist and former Press Secretary to Paddy Ashdown. Joe, I'm going to start with you again. This is incredible. We live in a country, this is like the Albanians who don't like chicken nuggets. A murderer's legs were too swollen to wear an ankle tag. One of them was taking his tag off to go on holiday and putting it on TikTok. A drug dealer ran a county lines operation and had 201 breachers wearing a tag. This is an absolute farce.
No, it is an absolute farce. You're absolutely right. And I mean, we should play credit to this. This has all been revealed in a Channel 4 Dispatches programme with somebody working undercover. But the fault of this lies with, first of all, Capita, you know, one of these private companies, and now Serco. And just to put it into perspective, in 2011, the Prison and Probation Service launched a transformation programme to improve efficiency and capability in tagging by introducing new technology. It failed. It cost £98 million of taxpayers' money. So, in 2023, Serco took over from Capita. They were fined £22.9 million for fraud and false accounting.
But Serco are a government-funded company. They're the biggest landlord of asylum seekers in Britain. So the fine is taxpayers' money.
Yeah, absolutely. Serco and Capita and G4S, they are all outsourced, mainly dealing with prison and judiciary. It is absolutely disgusting, and they need to be hauled before the ministers and held to account.
Ranald, is that likely to happen? It just seems farce after farce.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly, where there is failure, ministers should absolutely intervene and hold not only companies but officials who instructed those companies to account. Better procurement is actually a really important thing in government. Government gets that poor procurement often across the whole of government, which gets these bad outcomes. But I think there's a bigger problem here, which is actually criminal justice and making sure that victims are put first. You know, I'm a believer, I'm unashamedly a believer in prison works. You know, Michael Howard famously said that back in the 1990s. If people are in prison, they can't commit crimes out on the streets. They can't, for example, stab or stalk any individuals, law-abiding individuals. And so I think, you know, we do need to build more prison places. But that's the important thing, not tagging.
We have to leave it there.
We have to leave it there, otherwise we'll have to tag the pair of you. Ranald J. Wardener and Joe Phillips, thank you very much. Now, an MOJ spokesman said this to GB News: "We will hold Serco to account with further financial penalties imposed should our expectations not be met." And Serco's chief executive, Anthony Kirby, said this: "We fully acknowledge the responsibility. We have to get it right and are committed to protecting public safety. Serco has invested heavily in this contract and has not made a penny in profit to date. We are tagging a record number of people, and by the end of last year, our performance had improved and it was publicly recognised to be at an acceptable level." Now, coming up next is State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's just hoved interviews. Sir Jacob, what's on your menu?
Well, I'm following up from you that you've, I understand, have foul language on the programme discussing the hot topic of Labour selling out on Brexit. Labour seems to want to give away our fish. It seems to want to subscribe to the European Court of Justice. It seems to want to allow free movement of young people, flooding the country with even more people. They said they wouldn't retreat on Brexit. They are. It looks as if they're about to give in, and that'll make trade deals with America harder, but it'll also put us back under the yoke of Brussels.
Okay, superb stuff. That's the next State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Just in case you haven't had enough Brexit tonight, there's more to come. Thank you, Ranald. Thank you, Joe. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg up next with State of the Nation. I'll be back tomorrow 3 till 6, but first, here's the weather with Greg Dewhurst.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Low pressure really dominating, an unsettled outlook. Outbreaks of heavy rain over the next few days, some strong winds at times too. And those strong winds developing as we go through this evening and overnight as this area of low pressure moves in from the south, bringing some heavy rain to western parts in particular as well. Parts of Wales, the West Country, have a yellow warning from the Met Office out through the night into Wednesday morning. The heavy rain then transferring into parts of Northern Ireland during the early hours. Elsewhere, generally quite cloudy with outbreaks of rain. Temperatures overnight generally holding up around 6 or 7 degrees due to the cloud. The winds picking up too, gales developing through the Irish Sea along southern coasts, and these strong winds spreading inland as we go through the day. Let's look at the details for Wednesday morning, and actually across northern Scotland it's a bright start for some of us, some sunny spells here, but the rest of Scotland cloudy, some patchy rain, heavy rain across Northern Ireland. There could be some localised flooding issues first thing here. The rest of England generally cloudy, and that heavy rain extending into western parts of England and Wales as well. Just some brighter skies starting to come into southern counties first thing Wednesday morning, and this sunshine slowly spreads a little further north through the day as the area of low pressure just tends to very slowly push its way northwards. So some parts of Wales, northern England, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland will have a wet day, some strong winds too, and it will feel quite cold. Temperatures struggling to get into the double figures here. Breezy across the rest of England and Wales, but sunny spells developing and temperatures around 17 Celsius. For Thursday, the remnants of that low pressure start pulling away and it becomes a brighter day for most with sunny spells, scattered showers. Some of the showers can be heavy at times, but some places will avoid these and stay dry all day, and temperatures around the mid-teens. It stays unsettled as we head towards the Easter weekend. Further rain at times, temperatures generally around average.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy